Bob Barker was never supposed to be in Happy Gilmore. They originally had a totally different old white guy in mind. Happy Gilmore 2 hits Netflix this weekend, so here's some things I bet you never knew about the 1996 original. The story behind Happy Gilmore starts in the early 1980s in Manchester, New Hampshire, when Adam Sandler was just a teenager. He and his friend Kyle McDonough, who was a hockey player, would go golfing together, and McDonough could always drive the ball way farther than Sandler. So the future comedian assumed that talent came from McDonough's hockey skills. Sandler would soon start doing stand-up and later get on SNL, and in 1994 he made his first feature film, Billy Madison. While making that movie, producer Robert Simmons gave Sandler and his co-writer and former college roommate Tim Herlihy some advice. He said, make sure your second movie is in the works in case the first one tanks. So they decided to start brainstorming the next movie. Sandler thought back to Kyle McDonough, who by the way went on to play pro hockey in Europe and now coaches Manchester Memorial High School's hockey team. And so Sandler and Herlihy came up with a story about a hockey player who smacks a 400-yard drive. And they got to writing the script starting in fall 1994, leading all the way up to spring 1995, while Sandler was still working at SNL and while they were editing Billy Madison. Sandler and Herlihy were heavily inspired by Caddyshack, a movie the two of them bonded over in college. And Herlihy says he came up with the line, "I eat pieces of shit like you for breakfast." Sandler's friend and one-time roommate Judd Apatow then ended up doing an uncredited rewrite on the film. And they also brought the script to former pro golfer Mark Lai to get his thoughts. Lai was shocked by what they had written, telling Sandler and Herlihy, "You've got to be crazy, you cannot do a movie like that." Lai said the original draft had Happy winning the Masters, and quote, "They had the green jacket, they were desecrating the USGA, making fun of Augusta National." He said that they should make it a fictional tournament instead, so they did, and they changed the green jacket to a gold jacket in the film. Lai also didn't find it believable that Happy could consistently hit 400-yard drives. Ultimately, he took the guys to a PGA Tour event so they could comprehend the atmosphere of a pro golf tournament. Lai says he finally gave them his blessing after their 5th draft. Sandler would end up getting fired from SNL in May 1995, but thankfully Billy Madison was a success, so Universal wanted another Adam Sandler movie, and it would be Happy Gilmore. Sandler and Universal then started looking for a director. Years prior, Problem Child director Dennis Dugan had tried to cast Adam Sandler in a movie, but the producers on that film said no because Sandler wasn't well known enough. So in spring 1995, Dugan's agents sent him the Happy Gilmore script. He stayed up all night reading it and wrote up 5 pages of notes. Dugan had some experience with golf. He was once a greenskeeper at the Chicago Golf Club in Wheaton, Illinois. The next day, he met with Adam Sandler about directing the movie. He said, "I walk in the room and Sandler says, 'You're the guy who wanted to give me that part. I don't need to know anything else. I want to work with you.'" Dugan then went on a research trip to the Colonial National Invitational to study the PGA Tour and think about how he'd shoot the movie. Then it was time to cast the film. They approached Kevin Costner for the villain role of Shooter McGavin, but he turned it down to do another 1996 golf comedy, Tin Cup. Bruce Campbell reportedly lobbied hard to get the part, but they didn't think he was right, which left the role vacant for weeks up until filming. Dugan and Sandler then set their sights on Christopher McDonald. In the lead up to filming in Vancouver, McDonald happened to also be working on a different movie in town, and he was staying at the same hotel as Sandler and Dugan. So they bumped into him and gave him the script. Herlihy says, "We really bullied him into doing the movie. Christopher McDonald liked the screenplay and thought it was funny, but he wanted to go home to his family when he was done shooting. He didn't want to roll immediately into another movie in Vancouver." But then McDonald went on a weekend trip to play in a celebrity golf tournament, and he won the tournament, which reminded him of Sandler's golf movie. He agreed to take a meeting with Sandler, and quote, "We sat down in a little coffee shop and laughed for fricking 25 minutes. And I said, I've got to do this movie." The production then allowed his family to come stay with him in Vancouver. Julie Bowen was very intimidated at her audition. She remembered seeing all these, quote, super sexy girls in the waiting room, and she didn't think she could compete with their looks. But when she went in to read, she said the producers were visibly relieved. They told her, "Some of these girls are just so aggressively sexy." Bowen was confused as to why they didn't want sexy, but her relatability obviously won her the part. Adam Sandler wasn't sure if Carl Weathers was right for Chubbs, because he was mostly known for dramas. But Weathers' audition blew them all away, and he got the part. They then added the bit where Chubbs is missing a hand, referencing Predator, where Weathers' character lost an arm. Happy Gilmore then has a ton of notable cameos. Kevin Nealon as a fellow golfer, Richard Keel as his former boss, Ben Stiller as the orderly, which is uncredited by the way, Robert Smigel plays the IRS agent, Will Sasso and DJ Jackson appear as the movers, Mark Lai ended up in the film, as well as pro golfer Lee Trevino, though Trevino later said he regretted his cameo as he would never have done the movie if he knew how much swearing was in it. Sportscaster Vern Lundquist also appears, and as of 2016, Lundquist said he was still getting a $34 residual check for the movie every single month. But maybe the most famous cameo of all is Bob Barker, though Barker was not Adam Sandler's first choice. They originally wanted Tonight Show sidekick Ed McMahon to play that part, but he said no when he learned about the movie's crude humor, and he didn't like that in the original script he would lose the fist fight to Happy. Judd Apatow then suggested Bob Barker. Meanwhile, Sandler had heard that Bob Barker was neighbors with Chuck Norris, and that Norris and Barker would spar, star, so they got him to be in the film and they rewrote the fight to have Barker win. And of course they added the legendary line, "The price is wrong, bitch," written by Judd Apatow. 10 days before filming, Sandler called up Dennis Dugan and brought him to a driving range near the Crew Hotel. Dugan recalled Sandler saying, "I got an idea, I just want to see if I can do it, but I think it might be cool." And then he proceeded to show him Happy's wild swing. Dugan says Sandler hit the shit out of the ball, and then he did it again, over and over. The only words that Dugan could muster was, "Holy shit, that's really cool." Universal set the budget at $12 million, but Dugan told The Athletic that the studio wasn't all that invested in the movie. Quote, "Universal said to me, we don't care what the movie does because we'll make money on home video," and then they kind of treated it like that the whole time. That's why Sandler went to Sony after that. Happy Gilmore then started filming July 6, 1995 in Vancouver. Most of the golf course and club scenes were filmed in Pitt Meadows at the Swan Eset Bay Resort and Country Club, while they shot some interiors, including the broadcasting booth in an abandoned hospital. Sandler and McDonald avoided each other on set to build up their antagonistic chemistry. Mark Lai helped McDonald with his golf game and made him look like a pro. McDonald said he got his handicap down to a 7 while filming. Dugan says the hockey stick style putter was his idea, and Sandler had to take on a hockey style putting stance because the gold-plated putter was really heavy. But Sandler was then able to sink 20 to 30 foot putts over and over with said putter. They used a real alligator in some shots who was apparently a diva and didn't want to come out of his cage to appear on camera. The art department built the miniature golf course from scratch using old parade float materials found at a nearby junkyard. And then they wrapped filming on September 1st, 1995 after just 2 months. Devo frontman Mark Mothersbaugh composed the movie's score, and Happy Gilmore hit theaters February 16th, 1996. It did $8.5 million opening weekend, falling to number 2 behind Broken Arrow. It would go on to gross $41 million total, which is more than 3 times its budget. I couldn't find home video revenue numbers, but based on the movie's long life post-release, I'm sure just as Universal predicted, it made a lot of money off home video. Critics were mixed to positive at the time. Today, 63% of the 56 reviews assessed by Rotten Tomatoes are positive. Sandler and Barker won the MTV Movie Award for Best Fight, while Sandler was nominated for a Razzie for the movie. As I mentioned, Happy Gilmore would grow into a cult classic thanks to its many cable TV airings and home video success. The golf community is particularly fond of the film, and the Happy Gilmore swing has become a legend of its own. 3-time major champion Padraig Harrington uses it in training, while the TV show Sports Science found that it can add distance at the cost of accuracy. While pro golfer Jamie Sedlowski has been called the real-life Happy Gilmore because he's a long drive champion who used to play hockey. Christopher McDonald says the movie is the #1 thing he's most recognized for, and he'd go on to reprise his role as shooter in the PGA Tour 2K video game. Bob Barker also said that Price is Right audience members asked him about the movie almost every day after. In 2022, Sandler revealed that he had been thinking of ideas for a sequel, and then in March 2024, McDonald leaked that he was sent a script. And then in May 2024, Netflix confirmed that the sequel was in development. It shot in New Jersey in fall of that year and got a release date of July 25th, 2025. Thanks for watching. If you've made it to the end of this video, drop a mista in the comments. And check out my newsletter for more deep dives and entertainment news.